and welcome to Channels, the Nextflow podcast. I'm Geraldine, lead developer advocate at Seqerans, and today I'm joined by my colleagues Syme and Florian Wuennemann, both from our scientific development team. Guys, thank you for joining me.
Pleasure. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us, Geraldine.
So the three of us recently attended the ISMB conference in Montreal. And if you're not familiar with it, it's the annual meeting for the International Society for Computational Biology, ISCB. And ISMB, the conference name, stands for Intelligent Systems for Molecular Biology, which is honestly not the most descriptive, but I think it's a legacy name. But anyway, it's a really great mid-sized conference that's focused on computational biology, bioinformatics. And so it was a very natural thing for us to attend, both as exhibitors, as a company, and for the three of us, as people who take an interest in the scientific and technical advances. It's a really interesting and fun conference to go to. So we had a really great time, and we wanted to share some of the highlights from the conference. So to kick us off, let's talk a little bit about the scientific themes of the conference this year. I will say one of the things that struck me was that there were tons of presentations that kind of circled around ML and AI. And Rob, I think you had some kind of comments about the evolution of the field on that.
Yeah, it was a fantastic conference for AI. Obviously, it's a quite hot topic at the moment. But for the longest time, I've been waiting to see really clear examples of utility in computational biology and molecular biology research. I feel like we've been talking about it for 10 years now, and this conference was fantastic for me because it was the first time I saw some really great practical applications of the technology, particularly around protein modeling, these large models for protein sequence generation and sort of annotation. I think up until this conference, the best utility I'd seen is sort of rare variant disease sort of annotation and detection. But now we're starting to see a huge pool of potential applications for the tech. So very exciting time.
Very cool.
From a deep skeptic to someone who's actually not 100% on board, but actually excited to see what's going to happen in the next 12 to 48 months.
Yeah, it feels like we're at a really interesting point in time, because there's definitely a bit of a bubble, and by that, I think there's a massive bubble forming around AI, in general. If you look at what's happening in the general population, and a lot of applications where it feels a lot like AI is just an excuse to get rid of humans and have some not necessarily great kind of modeling to just take care of stuff that otherwise you would have human doing. But in our specific field, it does feel like there's something there that's actually starting to deliver results in a way that's actually quite promising. So that was pretty cool to see. And Rob, I think you also had some interesting observations from a favorite talk, I believe, that you attended.
Yeah, so there were a couple of great talks. I really enjoyed Guillaume Bourque's talk about pan-genomes in general. I think pan-genomes are great, and it's exciting to see. It's another one of these things that we've talked about for so long, and I feel like we're just it's hitting traction now, and we're starting to see practical applications. And of course, the Bourque Lab and in collaborations with other labs has this large-scale pan-Canadian genomics, genome library project that's spinning up, and sort of the scale of that is very impressive. Those sort of large-scale scientific projects are always great to see. Also great to see that Canadian science. There's a lovely sort of sweet spot of sort of pan-provincial collaboration that's possible in Canada, so it's great to see.
Yeah, I feel like on the pan-genome side, that's also something where the keynotes at our recent summits last year in 2023 were both in Barcelona and Boston, were about pan-genome work, and it feels like that is also work that is starting to very much deliver interesting results. My worry on that front is the tooling isn't ready in terms of variant representations, variant colors. How do we effectively leverage those technical advances in at kind of large scale. I feel like there's something that's a bit lagging on the tooling side, but hopefully seeing the potential that's starting to crystallize will motivate people to do kind of the maintenance and update work that's necessary to get like the big popular tools to actually catch up on that, or be replaced by new up and coming tools. That's also a definite possibility.
I mean, the cynical side of me will say that by the lack of standardized tooling, file formats, or processes in general has never stopped the field of bioinformatics and computational biology before. I don't know why it would stop us now.
Yeah. It's not like it's a complete mess on the file format side. That gives me an opportunity to plug the GA4GH plenary in Melbourne in September. I know Melbourne is very far, but GA4GH, if people aren't aware of it, I always find an excuse to make a plug for it. It's the Global Alliance for Genomics and Health. It's a standards development organization. A lot of people volunteer their time and efforts, some sponsored by their organizations, to actually help push things forward in terms of, developing file format standards, developing tooling, data transfer for protocols, all sorts of things like that, as well as kind of the legal and ethical and InfoSec side of things. There's a big public meeting that's coming up in September, so anybody who's interested, please check that out. There will be links in the description of the podcast. Anyway, sorry, I always shoehorn that in there somewhere because I think it's like standards development. Nobody really wants to do it, but it has to get done. So please get involved. And if you get involved, you get to have a say in what the future is going to look like. So anyway, sorry, back to the regular programming of what
It is so important. It's really important work. I really like what you said, Geraldine, about noticing the sort of 2023 Nextflow conferences had this pangenomics theme, and I felt like this year's conference, like in Boston particularly, and I expect probably the same again in Barcelona at the end of the year, had a sort of spatial omics, multi-omics theme. And I remember, I feel like that sort of multi-omics theme was reflected in a lot of the ISMB presentations and posters as well. There was a great tutorial from Ian Simpson's group about sort of multimodal graph representation and sort of inference across those, like tooling and methods for inference across those graphs, which I really enjoyed, which was fantastic. And it was a sort of theme. So it's interesting to see that the Nextflow conferences mirror or run like concurrently or maybe even slightly ahead of their sort of scientific conferences. So it's a great plug for the Nextflow conferences as well.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a reflection of what the community is actively working on. And for those who don't know, what Rob is referring to is the Nextflow Summits, the Nextflow, which is a community conference for people working with Nextflow on a variety of applications. And we've got the next one coming up in Barcelona in October, towards I think it's the last week of October. It runs over October to November, which is I'm missing Halloween, which is not a very popular thing but for my family, but it's going to be a great conference and you should join us in Barcelona. And it's going to be hybrid, so it's also possible to join remotely if you can't travel to Barcelona. But if you join us in person, it's a really fun time. It's a great group. We'll have a final plug for that at the end of the episode.
Yeah, maybe I can jump in quickly and also just say that multimodality is definitely something that I've seen as well as at the conference a lot. I didn't have so much time to see so many talks, unfortunately, at the conference, but one that really stood out for me, where we were talking about standards and then how people can establish certain standards and improve how things are processed in their labs. My favorite talk, and I don't want to be like the Nextflow ambassador pitching another Nextflow ambassador, but Francesco Lescai's talk in the bioinformatics core session was really great. He was basically talking about how they utilized Nextflow and NF core tooling to really scale their bioinformatics analysis needs at the core facility that he works at in Italy. And the room was packed. It was a great atmosphere. I think everybody got really excited about the capabilities that Nextflow and NF core tooling offers to people. And that was really cool to see for me. It was my first conference representing Seqera. I've been in the Nextflow community for a while. But it was really great to see the passion people have about Nextflow and how they use it in different ways. So that talk really was kind of like a a very inspiring reminder of how community can shape usage of a tool, and how the community is really the driver of this tool. It was really cool to see.
Yeah, and that gives me the perfect segue to bring up kind of our next section, our next segment here, talking about running the Nextflow / Seqera booth at the conference, because we were not only attending as, interested people, but we were representing Seqera, the company that makes Nextflow, in case you hadn't made the connection. And you mentioned not being able to attend a lot of the talks. That's in part because we were very busy a lot of the time running a small booth, which is a table with a couple of banners backdrop. Let's be honest. But it was really great, and I thought we could maybe talk a little bit about the experience. Especially for you guys, you might not often be called on to like staff a booth at a conference. It is, I've done it a few times. It's always a wonderful experience to, meet people in the community who come up. Some of it is just people who are already users of Nextflow and just come up to say hi or ask what's new, but also a lot of people who are new to it. For example, we got a big influx of people coming over after Francesco's talk, saying, hey, this was a great talk. I want to learn more about this thing. So yeah, you guys want to comment a little bit on what that experience was like and what you took away from it?
I really loved there was this like bimodal distribution of people. There were the absolute like people who were doing their PhD and they'd like wanted to come up and say thanks to because Nextflow has really helped them out and sort of structure and organize their data and sort of get them to the end of their PhD. And then there were the people who had heard a lot of buzz around the conference about learning Nextflow, and like I had a number of conversations that were basically a conversation where the person would say the primary takeaway from ISMB was that I need to learn Nextflow. Part of like the most fun I had at the conference was sitting down with people and writing a little pipeline with them and showing them Nextflow hands-on at a table near the booth. And I'd forgotten how exciting it is to see Nextflow for the first time, and all the little features and the lovely quality of life improvements. That was I love that. It's super fun because I've been running Nextflow and like been in the community for a long time, and it's easy to forget that it's doing some pretty magical things. So I really, really enjoyed that.
Yeah, I can only second that, what Rob was saying. Like me, just recently having come out of the academic research environment and having had Nextflow as a tool myself that has helped me so much in image processing analysis and omics analysis, I was still kind of close to like having that feeling of like how it feels to set up a Nextflow pipeline for something that just seemed extremely hard before you discovered Nextflow. And so having people that just recently had this experience as well come to the booth and just, basically thank us or the Nextflow community, basically, I think us as representatives of the Nextflow community maybe, to say that it really changed their research, they changed the way they conduct their analyses. And seeing people do these analyses that are just at scale of like thousands and thousands of jobs or hundreds of samples is really cool. And then I think a third group that I saw were people that were like wanting to use Nextflow and with other maybe not so computationally versed people, and then being able to now present them Seqera platform as another product that, cloud, they can use it for free as well. It's great to see that you can say, well, look, you can use Nextflow in the command line, but there's also this whole like GUI kind of web-based tool that you can use to really present it to people that want to launch pipelines from the browser on infrastructure that you've set up for them. So, and then people often were surprised because I think many people that have used Nextflow as a CLI tool haven't really interacted with either Seqera as a company or a Seqera platform yet. And so that was really a cool thing that you could just present to them and be like, hey, here's this tool that you can use and get started with.
Yeah, and that was definitely, I feel like that falls in the bucket of a lot of people are coming up who know Nextflow or have heard of Nextflow, but had not even heard of Seqera, the company. A number of people told me, oh, I didn't realize that there was a company that made Nextflow. I thought it was just a community project, which I think speaks to the open source nature of Nextflow as kind of a framework. And as a set of tools, but a lot of them were really interested to hear kind of what the Seqera platform offers. And this is not to make a sales pitch, but just the fact that you mentioned they can use it for free. It's true. Like there's a free tier that people can use at small scale with limitations, or if they're academics, they can join the academic program and use it at full scale for also for free. So there's a lot of opportunities, I think, to take advantage of it for anybody who wants to have a little bit of extra or a lot of extra functionality compared to just running it from the command line. But I thought it was really interesting because a lot of people came up and asked, so you're a company, you make Nextflow, but you make it free. Like, how do you make money? How does this even work? Not in a bad way, but just like, how does this work, right? And I think people were really interested to hear that, it's a key part of the business model to have Nextflow be an open ecosystem that's fully open source and free. Because if you have a vibrant ecosystem of people using Nextflow or making pipelines through projects like NF Core, but also other independent projects, which are all independent of the company, that in itself is a really great argument for people to adopt Nextflow, because it means that there's a lot of other users, it's developed, it keeps being maintained and keeps progressing to meet the needs of the community. And then like enterprises who will find benefits in something like Seqera platform have the added confidence that it's not just a platform, it is a platform that is backed by an entire ecosystem of scientists who are actually actively using it. I mean, you guys kind of are at the forefront of that on that side, since you fall under the customer success part of the organization, right?
Yeah.
So you work with, you see that day to day, right? You work with customers, you help them be successful. It's really cool.
And that relationship is important, not just for customers, but also for the open source people writing open source pipelines, PhD students and postdocs, knowing that like a lot of software, like academic software, has this terrible sort of curse of projects, really, really important projects standing up, and then the postdoc leaves or gets a tenure track, and then suddenly, and then at the end of the day, we're teaching, and then the maintenance of these tools become a really difficult thing to provide over time. And I think one of the nice things about that Seqera offers people using Nextflow in an open source context is that dependability and reliability, that this thing will be maintained beyond the duration of a 4-year postdoc or contract or similar.
Yeah. And on top of that, I think what I've also realized talking to people is that I think, being a company that backs this open source tool, it helps us accelerate a lot faster, right? Like, I just feel like the speed at which Nextflow has been able to move as a community and implementing features that people that in the academic context, value, but also the enterprise customers value, is like unparalleled, I think, in terms of open source software. And I don't think many of this would have been possible if funding only came from like the public funding, resources that are there. So I think that is another really big advantage. Like, it just helps accelerate the development of the tool as well as the maintenance.
Yeah, I mean, I've famously came over from a rival project, sort of, another open source workflow framework project, where like there's a really neat technical solution. The technical features are solid. There's some very engaged people who are pushing it forwards on the open source side, but the rate at which you can make progress is just it's much harder when you don't have like a full company pushing it forward as a matter of like business strategy. So it really makes a very big difference. There was one person who came over to the booth at one point, said that they had I think they had adopted Argo for their workflows. They had considered what existed in the primarily bioinformatics space, and we're like, yeah, all of these things are projects that don't have the level of security and reliability. Security in the sense of long-term, like that you can be confident that's just going to be around in 2 to 5 to 10 years. And when we kind of explained the size of it, the importance of it, and the fact that there's a whole company and ecosystem behind it, they were very much like, oh, this is actually what we're looking for, and this is a great argument for switching. So it's very gratifying to see that. So there's really a range, right? Go ahead, Rob.
It's really rare. Like a lot of projects, open source projects, are trying to solve this problem. It's certainly not a Seqera and Nextflow specific problem. There's a lot of really important science that needs to find, and projects that need to find funding. And I think Seqera's model is very smart.
So moving on kind of from there, I wanted to bring up another really cool part of the booth experience, and we have Florian to thank for that primarily, was that, so it, and this is a little bit of how the sausage is made, but if you think about how it works for a company to exhibit, to be an exhibitor at a conference, you have to pay to have a booth and all of that stuff. Part of how you justify to your marketing team and your marketing overlords that, to spend the money to go to a community conference where there's not really a lot of potential commercial customers anyway, right? It's mostly academic, mostly people in research centers. So you're not going there to find commercial leads, but you want to be able to justify going there and spending time with the community, etc. And part of the way you traditionally do that is capturing contact information. You want to be able to say how many people you talked to and who they were and stuff like that. And Florian came up with a really fun way to do it because ISMB doesn't offer lead tracking to exhibitors. Florian, do you want to tell us what you came up with to make it fun and make it worthwhile for people to leave their contact info with us?
Yeah, absolutely. I just thought it would be fun to somehow engage people that haven't used Nextflow with Nextflow itself, and maybe even get them to run like a pipeline, even if it's like a very small pipeline. The conference was around like the Euro 2024 as a first. I thought, maybe we could do something fun with like soccer or football, or wherever you come from and call it. But then I thought, actually, we didn't have lead tracking, and getting, it's always kind of boring to enter your contact information in like a sheet or some paper and just be like, okay, now I'm like, participating in this raffle or whatever they're doing. And so I thought, maybe we can actually, capture their information by having them submit a Nextflow pipeline. And I'm just going to switch to the command line for those that have video, and for those that are just following us on audio, I'll try to explain what we're doing. Basically, we created a little pipeline, an Nextflow pipeline under our Seqera Labs umbrella on GitHub, and that we called Seqera Labs Events. And we made a little like sub workflow there, or like not sub workflow, but we made a little like workflow where if you specify the flag ISMB BOSC 2024, you can then use the parameters with your name. So in my case, for example, I would do Florian Wuennemann and enter my email as well as a flag, which use my Seqera.io email here. And then also their institute as the last command line flag. And I'm just going to say Seqera here. And when they submit that, it basically takes that information and prints a pretty little message saying, welcome to ISMB and BOSC 2024, and the BOSC logo, which is this very beautiful pair with the flag of Europe and Africa. And basically, it's the part of the world map that's in the pair. And then prints congratulations. And actually, what the pipeline does technically is it submits these parameters that the people specified on the command line to a Google form that is then filled with this information. And thanks to Google access restrictions, the other participants of the conference were not able to see all the information entered by other participants, but we were. And we could also gather some information of how they were actually submitting this pipeline. So we had like 3 different tiers of how people could enter the raffle. Basically, they could submit this pipeline at the booth at our computer, which would give them 1 raffle ticket. We then wanted to create a bit of an incentive for people that would make the effort and download Nextflow and actually interact with the software on their own computer. And so if they submitted the same pipeline from their computer using Nextflow, they would get 2 raffle entries. And then finally, to even create a bit more incentive and engage people with Seqera platform, as many people hadn't heard of this or interacted with it, we created a 3rd tier where if they logged into the pipeline, into the platform, so Seqera.io, where you can log into Seqera platform, and created an access token there, and basically submitted this pipeline with with Tower, which will then send the log information of your run to your account in Seqera platform, then they would get 3 raffle entries. So basically tripling their chance of winning. And at the end of the day, people could win a pair of AirPods that we were raffling off to everyone who participated. And it was very popular, I think. I was very happy with the participation of people. 69 people totally participated. And yeah, we had one lucky winner that has a Nextflow engraved pair of AirPods now.
Yeah, I think it was very popular once word got around that we were doing that. I think we got a lot of comments that it was a very appropriate way to do it with this particular audience, because it's like you have to go on the command line and run a pipeline. It's very it's kind of on point for bioinformaticians. And we did, by the way, to be clear, we're not collecting people's info to spam them or anything like that. We send them a nice little email at the end with some links to resources that we told them about. That way they get like links to the tutorials and that kind of useful thing. And then after that, we don't send anything anymore. The goal is not to spam people. But it was, people seemed really kind of entertained by, and we did get some people who submitted it through the platform, right? But
yeah, we got about 12 people who actually made an access token and submitted via the platform or with the platform. Yeah, and I think we learned a bit on like how we can make it a smoother experience in the future. And by the way, Phil was asking on LinkedIn or on Twitter, it was, or X, whether this pipeline is still available. It's open in Seqera Labs/events. So if you want to try it out, you can run it with --help or -help. And that will just print some help information. We might reuse this repository in the future if we're ever planning to do something along those lines again. So obviously, if you enter information into the Google form now, you're not going to win anything. But
I was gonna say we're not there. There's not any more airports for now, but we are very seriously considering doing that again at the next conference. The next conference where we'll be exhibiting will be ASHG, the American Society for Human Genetics, in Denver in November. So if you are going to ASHG, definitely come over to our booth there, and we'll. I imagine that we're going to do that again because it was really pretty successful, and it was just really fun. And I think this time we're going to be upgrading to AirPods Pro to really, ASHG is bigger. We gotta up our game in terms of the raffle prize. But yeah, that was kind of a fun thing to be running, and it was kind of cool to have a whole crowd present for the drawing on day 3 of the conference. It was like, and the other exhibitors were like, "What are they doing that there's such a big crowd?" So that was kind of cool. Anyway, so yeah, that was our cool raffle. Speaking of that, you just showed you kind of talked about the BOSC and the BOSC logo there. So for those who aren't aware, so this is my segue to our next segment. BOSC stands for Bioinformatics Open Source Conference. It's a conference that has been running for 25 years. It used to be an independent conference, and then it got kind of combined with ISMB just because it made more sense, because the core audience is kind of the same. And so it became basically, the conference itself became a part, a COSI, so a community of special interest, a track within ISMB itself. So there's 2 days of BOSC track within the overall ISMB. And it's organized by the Open Bioinformatics Foundation, the OBF. So we were sponsoring. The reason we put on the logo there, the BOSC logo, was because we were sponsoring the BOSC track at this year's ISMB. So we're a platinum sponsor, which is always gratifying to be able to do that. BOSC has a really great mission of promoting open source and bioinformatics, and the sponsorships mainly fund travel for people who otherwise couldn't attend. So by sponsoring this kind of thing, that means several additional people get to join the conference who otherwise couldn't. As part of that, we had the opportunity, the BOSC organizers offered us the opportunity to co-create some very special swag, which Florian is going to demonstrate for those of you who have video. So we made some special socks, limited edition, that are co-branded. There's the Nextflow logo and there's a pear symbolizing BOSC. They're very colorful, mainly blue and green with little pops of orange, white, and red highlights. They're super colorful. They're extremely nerdy. They're very soft as well. And we gave them out at the start of the BOSC. Thank you, Florian, for the excellent visual demonstration. We handed out a whole bunch. I have a handful left over. So if anybody is having serious FOMO for having missed out on those, I am absolutely bribable. I'm kidding. I'm full of integrity and all that good stuff. But I do have a few leftovers, so it's negotiable. Anyway, that was really cool. Guys, what were your thoughts on that side of the conference? Do you have a chance to interact with the BOSC folks?
Only tangentially. I didn't actually get a chance to go to any of the BOSC talks. We were very busy running up our feet on the final days at the booth. Florian, did you get to see any of the BOSC?
So the talks, I don't think I've seen many, but we had the chance to hang out with them at their, I think, like social event, and I meet a lot of the organizers beforehand. And yeah, just great people, and it was really like a great organization. I think I was in the room like a couple of times to see people, pick up the socks, get excited about Nextflow and about open bioinformatics, which that's all about, right? So I felt it's great to sponsor these types of events. Supporting the open bioinformatics community, I think is one of the missions that we have as well. And it's one of my personal passions as well. Making things that are available, open, and usable for everybody. I think that's a really great goal in general.
I think it's one of my favorite things about our community is that it grew up in a time sort of over the last 25 years where open source was really had a lot of steam, and it's sort of baked into the culture of computational biology and bioinformatics as a whole, which I love. And like Nextflow is an expression of that much larger intent. Right? So it's lovely that the community as a whole is still like moving in that direction, and we should hold on to that as long as we possibly can. It's really important for everyone.
Absolutely. And I'll make one more plug for BOSC, which is after the ISMB conference is over, they typically, well, sometimes it's before, sometimes it's after, they get together for 2 days of CoFest. It's called CoFest for Collaboration Fest. And it's kind of like a mini hackathon, but it doesn't have to be about coding specifically. So there are other projects that you can work on that doesn't, so even if you're not a coder type, you can still participate and contribute. And that's really cool. I was able to join for one of the days this year, and it was really neat to reconnect with some of the folks and work together on a few projects. Next year, ISMB is going to be in Liverpool. It's always in July, kind of mid-July-ish. It'll be in Liverpool, and I believe CoFest will be before the conference in that one. But in any case, just to make a plug, if you're interested in open source bioinformatics, you should definitely try to make a plan to attend. It's a great group of people. It's a good time. And it's really interesting and collaborative. All right. Speaking of planning for the future, we have one more topic to cover in today's episode, which is jobs. And jobs is, it's a tough job market out there right now for a lot of people. And so we wanted to highlight a few job-related resources and opportunities. One was that, and that was kind of prompted because on the very first day of ISMB, there was a career fair, and we had a lot of young people come over to the booth to ask about potential jobs at Seqera or in the Nextflow ecosystem in general. And so, yeah, we thought that it might be nice to talk a little bit about a few resources related to that. Rob, do you want to mention a few?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing and the most obvious thing to mention is that like Seqera is often hiring. We are hiring right now at the time of recording, and probably when the podcast goes out, check out the careers page at seqera.io. But also, like we had a lot of scientists or sort of final year PhD students coming up and asking us for recommendations about how to get involved. And I think the most sensible course would be for people to be involved in the NF Core community. Not only is it great for your own skills and to get connected with the community of people writing Nextflow pipelines in sort of the establishment of those best practices, but it's also a lovely way to get visibility. Like I know Seqera and our scientific development team often looks to the NF Core community when we have open positions, but it's also just we have the jobs board in the NF Core Slack, which is not just Seqera, but in Nextflow community as a whole, posting jobs that require or would benefit from Nextflow experience. So I'd strongly recommend those looking for positions to check out that jobs board. So that's the jobs channel on the NF Core Slack.
Yeah, and it's also just a lot of fun to be in the NF Core community, just at that, right? Like you learn stuff. It looks great if you're applying for jobs that require Nextflow, but it's also just a bunch of amazing people that are super helpful and just the friendliest bunch of people. So I feel like beside all the great stuff that's career-wise, it offers to you, it's great to be part of NF Core, I think, as a community as a whole.
Yeah, and you don't need to be a pipeline maintainer, you don't need to be a lead, or you don't even need to be actively contributing to those pipelines. I saw a lot of posters of people who've written Nextflow pipelines for their own research projects that are not necessarily affiliated with NF Core. And that's great and should absolutely continue. But it's just a really great place to hang out, maybe hang out on the help page, NF Core, to provide Nextflow help or to ask questions. It's just a really nice, fun time.
Indeed, and I would add that from point of view of, if you take a step back and look at kind of the jobs out there for bioinformaticians right now, one of the things we track is jobs that require or at least ask for Nextflow experience as part of the job qualifications. And for the past few, I want to say a couple months, we've been, Marcel does this, he summarizes, so Marcel on the community team summarizes lists of job openings, not necessarily at Seqera, but out in the world that are asking for Nextflow experience, and every week basically tweets out a list, and I think it goes out on LinkedIn too. There's a list of job openings for people who have Nextflow experience. So there's clearly it's something that's seems to be gradually increasing. So it's a skill that's in demand. So definitely acquaint yourself with the resources to learn it, but also like as a service to our community, we're trying to kind of round up those kinds of jobs in the hope that it might help people, get connected to opportunities that would leverage their skills. One final note on that front is that the community team at Seqera is going to be hiring very soon for a new developer advocate based in the EU. So keep an eye on that in the near future. We hopefully will be opening a position, but feel free to already reach out if you're interested. We'd love to talk. Yeah. Any further thoughts on the jobs front, Florian and Rob?
That's perfect.
All good. I think we've kind of got around there. Final plug then is that we will be running the Barcelona Summit. I've already mentioned it earlier. So last week of October, make sure to make a plan and join us either in person or online to learn about everything that's new in the Nextflow ecosystem and connect with your peers in the ecosystem. We'll have a lot of interesting things happening. If you're joining in person, you can join either beginner training or the hackathon that takes place right before the conference. It's a great opportunity to get involved with NF Core, since we were just talking about that. And that's all we have for today. Thank you guys so much for joining today. I hope you had fun. I certainly had fun great fun at the conference, and we should definitely do that again.
Looking forward to next time.
Absolutely. Thanks, Geraldine.
Thanks, guys. Bye.